Hi everyone, welcome back to NLTI's official YouTube channel for the 3-year LLB programs, where we train students for all 3-year LLB entrance examinations in India like NLSAT, CUET PG, MHCET, Symbiosis AIET, DSNLU, NLUO, NLU Sikkim and CNLU, and a host of other entrance examinations. So what are we going to do in today's video is we are going to discuss exactly what has changed in the NLSAT. So NLSAT started in the year 2023. So this was NLSAT's 4th edition, 23, 24, 25, 26, wherein we saw a lot of changes being made in the paper pattern, the level of difficulty, and what the paper's expectations are from the candidates appearing for it. So now in this video, what I am going to do is we are going to trace all these changes in the NLSAT paper that we have seen over the years. And alongside that, we are going to do another one very important thing is that we are going to bust some of the myths associated with this paper. For example, a lot of people earlier used to think that only 2 to 3 months of preparation are enough for NLSAT, but now I will show you data-backed results that have now shown us that 2 to 3 months are not at all enough for your NLSAT prep, and you need around 8 to 9 months of consistent preparation if you want to ace this exam and enter your dream law school, that is the National Law School Bangalore. So stay tuned. In this video we are going to discuss firstly what has changed, and alongside that we are going to bust some of the most popular myths associated with this paper. So if you are a student aspiring for NLSAT 2027, this video is very important so that you know what is actually the truth about this paper, because there is anyways a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity when it comes to this paper. So to avoid that, we are bringing in this video so that you have absolute clarity on how to approach this exam if you are starting your preparation right now. So NLSAT 2027, what has changed? Okay, let's first discuss what the paper actually is before we talk about the myths. Let's take a quick bird's eye view of the exam itself. So the program is for the 3-year LLB cohort at the National Law School Bangalore. The total number of seats are 120. The exam is of a duration of 1 hour, 150 minutes, that is 2.5 hours. There are 2 parts to this paper. There is one part A and there is one part B. Part A has 75 objective questions, and then there is part B which sees legal reasoning answers. It is the subjective component in which you have to write your answers on a sheet of paper, and those answers are then evaluated by the professors at the National Law School Bangalore. And then we have the weightage, 50% part A, 50% part B. Both parts carry equal marks, 75 marks for 75 questions in part A and 75 marks for part B. This is further divided into 5 legal reasoning questions of 12 marks. So 12 into 5 is 60 marks. And then for the 15 mark, we have an analytical essay component in which you have to write an analytical essay of around 400 to 500 words for the essay component. Now, every year thousands of aspirants approach NLSAT with assumptions about who cracks the exam, how much preparation is needed, and what matters the most and what doesn't. In this video, we look at what the data actually tells us. This is no hearsay arguments that I am going to present. I am going to present very data-backed arguments. So firstly, the CLAT to NLSAT pipeline. The CLAT background student is one of the most common NLSAT profiles and also one of the most commonly mistaken about their own readiness. So for the last 3 years, we did not see a lot of CLAT people who were first initially aspiring for CLAT giving NLSAT later. But this year, if you go through all our topper interviews, let's say you talk about All India Rank 1, All India Rank 5, All India Rank 6, and I think even All India Rank 8. All these were people who initially targeted CLAT after their class 12th examinations. But for some reason, they were not able to enter their dream law school, that is NLS Bangalore, via the CLAT examination. And that is why this year, after completing their UG degree, they now pivoted towards NLSAT again to give another shot to NLS, and this year they ended up clearing it. So what this tells us is that now the competition for NLSAT is going to increase every subsequent year, because there are a lot of CLAT aspirants also now shifting their focus to NLSAT. For example, 3 years back, there is a student who could not clear CLAT and now entered into DU, pursued their UG from a good college in DU, and are now coming back to NLSAT again to give law another shot and attempt this paper. So 60,000 odd people give CLAT every year. We are expecting around 3 to 4,000 people now shifting to NLSAT every year to give law another shot and try entering their dream law school. So now if you have a CLAT background, what you have a strong reading comprehension base, you have some familiarity with legal language, and you have some speed driven exam training as well, because you have attempted 150 questions in 120 minutes or 120 questions in 120 minutes, but you do not have any writing component in CLAT, and there is also a different negative marking strategy. So what it means for NLSAT if you are from a CLAT background: you have reading habits and passage familiarity, so these habits already exist for your NLSAT prep. You have some familiarity with legal concepts because you have prepared for the legal reasoning component. Legal concepts and argument structures feel less intimidating, so even though the part B component is unique to you, it's new to you, it will feel some sort of less intimidation because you have already gone through the big four concepts of legal reasoning, like tort law, contract law, criminal law, constitutional law, etc. You have had a brief stint with these topics when you were preparing for CLAT. However, there is speed-driven exam training that can lead you to rush passages and avoid and make mistakes that were initially avoidable. So CLAT has 120 questions or 150 questions in 120 minutes depending on the year you gave in, but NLSAT has 75 part A questions only, and for these 75 part A questions you can also take around 80-85 minutes. There is no section-wise division. So what we have seen a lot of CLAT aspirants do is they speed rush the exam. They just go on attempting it in their earlier habit of attempting CLAT, and they make mistakes that were avoidable and simply made mistakes because they were rushing the paper. Because there is no writing component in CLAT, Part B often becomes the biggest weaknesses for CLAT aspirants now shifting to NLSAT. And because there is a different negative marking strategy, in CLAT you only get negative marks for wrong answers. In NLSAT you get negative marks also for unattempted questions. So attempting strategy must also be rebuilt from scratch. You cannot go about solving the NLSAT paper with the same negative strategy that you had for the CLAT exam. So the key takeaway from here is that a CLAT background, strong CLAT background helps, but CLAT preparation alone is not enough for NLSAT. The nature of the exam is fundamentally different, and this is what we have been training our students for. Other coachings prepare you using the CLAT resources, using the CLAT faculty, but at NLTI, we understand the NLSAT exam very deeply. We are almost obsessed with it, and we exactly know what to teach you and what will be asked in the paper. So that is how we tailor our courses accordingly. So NLSAT prep is completely different from CLAT. CLAT foundations might help you in NLSAT, but again the curricula is completely different and you have to start afresh if you are preparing for NLSAT, even if you were a CLAT aspirant earlier. So now this is our data-backed results, data-backed figures that I was talking about. So here what I am going to show you is that, let's say All India Rank 1 Mehak, I'm going to show you who actually cracks NLSAT, where are most of the toppers coming from, and so that you get an idea of where your chances, of what your chances are even before you start your preparation. So these are all the toppers, top 10 people in the NLSAT examination. All India Rank 1 Mehak, she comes from Delhi University. She pursued her English honours from the Hindu College. When did she enroll? She enrolled with us on 13th of June. Almost around this time, 1 year, almost 8 to 10 months, around 10 months before the paper. She gave all the 25 mocks that we released at NLTI. She gave 87 mocks out of the 100 we released, around 100, and the total number of tests she appeared for throughout her preparation was 137. So you can see how consistent Mehak All India Rank 1 was throughout her preparation. And when you compare her effort with the top 10 rankers, you will see that she gave disproportionate amount of time into solving mocks and solving sectionals as compared to any other student. Now let's talk about our All India Rank 2 Yashika. So Yashika also comes from Delhi University. She pursued her philosophy honours from Lady Shri Ram College, LSR. She enrolled with us on 3rd of June 2026. So this falls in our initial stereotype of people cracking NLSAT in 4 to 5 months. So she enrolled with us on 3rd of January and had around 4 months to prepare. She gave a total of 20 full length mocks, a total of 14 sectionals, and the total number of tests was 34. Now let's talk about Diksha. Diksha was All India Rank 4 in the paper. Again, a student of Delhi University. She pursued her economics from SRCC, Shri Ram, SRCC DU. She enrolled with us on 20th of June 2025. So you can see again, within a proximity of 1 week, both All India Rank 1 and All India Rank 4 enrolled with us. So she was again with us for a period of around 8 to 10 months. The total number of mocks she appeared for, 24. The total number of sections she appeared for, 31, taking the total number of tests she gave around 55. Now let's talk about Anahita, another prodigy of Delhi University. She pursued her philosophy honors from the Hindu College. She enrolled with us on 21st of September. So around September to April, how many months? September, October, November, December, and then 4 months. So she was also with us for around 8 months. So Anahita also prepared with NLTI for 8 months. The total number of full marks she appeared for 25. The total number of sections she gave 48, taking the total tests to 73. Now let's talk about Vanshika, again a student of Delhi University. Philosophy honors from Lady Shri Ram College, Delhi, enrolled with us on 28th of April. So Vanshika, I remember very distinctly, was one of our first students. I think she was among the top first 3 enrollments that NLTI got for the NLSAT 26 batch. So she was with us for almost 1 year. Almost full 1 year. 28th April ko she enrolled, and she was with us till the exam date, that is 26th of April. So she prepared for 12 months, consistent effort throughout 12 months. Appeared for 25 full length mocks, all the mocks. She appeared for 15 sectionals and the total number of tests was 40. Now let's talk about AIR 8. So till now all the students were from Delhi University. The first change we see here is at All India rank 8. Let's talk about Mansi. She pursued her BA Social Sciences from Azim Premji University, Bangalore. She enrolled with us on 28th of October 2025, around 7 months with NLTI. Total number of mocks 19, total number of sectionals 41, and the total number of tests including sectionals and mocks is 60. Now let's talk about Yash, economics honors again from Hansraj College, Delhi University. Enrolled with us on 20th of June. You again see that Diksha All India rank 4 and Yash All India rank 12 enrolled with us on the same date, that is 20th of June. Total number of mocks 19, total number of sectionals 18, taking the total to 37 tests in total. So now, what does this data tell us? It tells us that All India rank 1 appeared for 137 tests and All India rank 8 appeared only for 60 tests. So there is no single prep timeline. Everyone appeared prepared for different timelines, but one thing remains constant is that continuous testing, skill building and feedback is the most developed skill for NLSAT. If you enroll with us soon enough and you prepare throughout the year, give a lot of smocks, give a lot of sectionals, you are bound to do good in your NLSAT paper, because this is what the data tells us. You need to be consistent with your mocks and your sectionals to do good in the paper. So now let's talk about the first myth, that is NLSAT is only for humanities. However, this is not at all true. NLSAT rewards consistency, reading ability and writing skills, and these skills are not restricted to just one academic background. Okay. So we see these are the different backgrounds of our people. If you look at All India rank 18, I think Dhwani, she is a CA by profession who is working in a firm like PwC. So all these people have something that they can rely on, or they have an advantage when they start their preparation. For example, people from humanities background bring critical thinking, essay writing, social awareness. People from economics background bring some skills of analytical reasoning, data interpretation. People from science background also bring something, that is logical precision and structured thinking. People from psychology and sociology background bring an understanding of arguments, social awareness and writing. However, what these people need to build is common across almost all domains, is that they have to build their reading speed, they have to build their exam discipline, they have to continue practicing in a timed manner, they have to build their reading density tolerance. Even if you're coming from economics background or very dense backgrounds like philosophy or psychology, you have to start reading dense literature for your NLSAT examination. You have to bring in GK coverage. A lot of people from the other backgrounds have no connection at all with GK. For example, science people are almost unbothered by what is happening around the world, and they do not have a lot of knowledge about the GK and the current affairs bit. So they need to build that. People from psychology, sociology background need to build legal scenario application. It is not enough to just know what the principles or sociological standards are across the world, but you also need to apply that in the particular questions, and you need to build mock discipline. People from the CA background bring in financial reasoning, discipline, analytical depth, but they also need to build literary comprehension and their GK coverage and their breadth. Similarly, CLAT background graduates have the RC familiarity, that is reading comprehension familiarity. They already know how to go about approaching big passages, but what they need to build is an accuracy first approach. They have to build their skills for part B, and they also need to know when to attempt a question and how to attempt a question. Second myth that we are busting today is that NLSAT can be cracked in 2 to 3 months. Initially, when the competition used to be less, there was a common misperception that if you enroll with a coaching institute around the month of January, February, and you have around 3 to 4 months of preparation, you will be good to go. But now, as I've already told you, this is the myth that we are busting, that a short burst of preparation is enough. But now, the data that I've showed you, the 2026 topper class shows us a clear shift. Only serious aspirants who started 6 to 10 months early are now cracking the paper. Let me take you back to this slide. If you see 13 June, 12 months. 3 June, they had 4 to 5 months. Diksha enrolled with us on 20th of June again 8 to 10 months. 21 September, exactly 8 months. 28th April, exactly 1 year. 28th October, again 7 months they had. And 20th of June, complete 10 months. So this data tells us that people who cracked the paper ultimately in 2026 were people who were preparing for a minimum of 7 to 8 months. अगर आप उतना prepare नहीं कर रहे हो, you are not able to build familiarity with part B, and part B being the major rank differentiator will pull you down even if you do great in part A. So the myth that we are busting here is that 4 or 5 months are not enough. You need focused prep, and focused prep divided over a period of 8 to 10 months because you need familiarity with part B. The 2 to 3 month plan works only if your reading habits are already very strong, your part B writing is already practiced, and your GK base is very solid. And this only indicates to one domain, that is UPSC. So if you are, let's say, a UPSC aspirant, or you were a UPSC aspirant, then only 2 to 3 months you can see yourself foreseeably clearing the paper, because you already have your writing habit sorted, you are pursuing your GS, and you are up to date with GK, and your reading habits are also somewhat sorted. So if you are a UPSC aspirant and just trying out NLSAT, then I think 3 to 4 months are still good enough. But for most aspirants who are not UPSC aspirants, building those foundations takes a lot of months. The 2 to 3 month period should be the refinement phase and not the entire preparation. If you just rely on these 2 to 3 months to build in the entire skills required for NLSAT from the very scratch, then I'm sorry to say that, but you're too late and you might not end up cracking the paper. And this is not something that I am telling on my own or making it in the air. This is what the real data backed figures show you of the top 10 ranks that NLT has produced in this year. Now, the myth number 3 that we are trying to burst today is that mocks are only for the last month. A lot of people think that mock should begin after preparation is complete, but the reality, the myth, is now busted based on the topper figures that I just showed you. Mocks are now the primary training tool. You cannot simply rely on the mock test in your final 1 month of preparation. You have to integrate it throughout your 8 to 10 months of preparation if you want to do good in the paper. And again, this is something I'm not making in the air. This is what the data tells us. Mehak appeared for 137 tests. Yashika gave 34 tests. Diksha gave 55. Anahita gave a total of 73 tests and 25 mocks. Vanshika again 40 tests. Mansi gave 60 and Yash gave 37. And note one thing, that even though they gave less number of sectionals, all of them appeared for almost all the mocks that NLTI released. So we released 25 mocks last year. This year we're releasing 30 mocks, and all of them appeared for almost all the mocks. And not just that, they integrated their mocks from very early on in their prep, integrated throughout their prep. Not that they first prepared for 7-8 months and then started giving mocks. From the very first day of enrolling, a lot of these people started giving sectional tests to build their foundations. So it is very important that you do not leave mocks for the end and start integrating it in your prep immediately. Myth number 4 that we are trying to burst today is that part B can be winged. A lot of people think that part B बहुत easy है. You just have to write an answer and you will be graded. Note, there are no step marking. अगर आपने आंसर लिखा है, अगर प्रोफेसर्स को आंसर नहीं पसंद आया, they will award you a 0. They will award you 1 or 2 marks out of 12. There are no marks for filling in the pages. If you are coming from such a college in which you just have to keep filling on pages and you will get marks in your NSEM examinations, Sorry to break your heart, but NLSAT is not that type of paper. You do not have to quantify your answers, you also have to give in quality to that answers. So part B cannot be winged. Part B is, a lot of people think that part B is just writing and can be managed on exam day. The reality is that part B accounts for 50% of the total score and often becomes the rank differentiator. In this year, we have seen 2 people at the same score. Let's say 2 people got an all India rank of 45, but only one person got in and one person was waitlisted, simply because the person A got a better score in part B. So part B being the rank differentiator, one person got admission in the college and one person was waitlisted. So do not think that part B can be winged on the exam day. It has to be prepared throughout your preparation. Part B breakdown, part B component, there are 5 legal reasoning short answers and 1 analytical essay component. This I will show you with an example as well. Why you can't wing it? Because it requires a systematic approach, and without practice your answers will become descriptive rather than analytical. The paper is not asking you to describe an answer. It is not asking you to describe wars. In fact, it will ask you to write an analytical essay on either justifying wars or saying that wars can never be justified. So you have to analyze a prompt very carefully and write an argumentative essay on that or an answer on that. You cannot simply write a descriptive long form essay. Essay can also not be winged because you need to follow a structure. You need to know the balance and the legal awareness, and timed practice must work together. You cannot simply wing the paper, part B paper on the exam day, because you will end up mistiming everything and leaving almost the entirety of part B, because it is very time consuming. So you need to know the essential skills of time management and balancing time management with the quality of answers to actually end up getting a good score in part B. Furthermore, what NLSAT 26 did, it assigned you a specific side to argue. Earlier in the initial years of NLSAT, what happened was that there was no sign assigned to the question. You could argue from either side. But what NLSAT 26 did, it assigned you a side that you have to argue only on behalf of A or only on behalf of B. So again, this is a skill that requires repeated practice under time conditions, because otherwise you will not end up completing the paper, and which will consequently result in you not getting admission in the paper. Now, the 5th myth that we are busting today is that GK is random. So a lot of people, even before starting GK, they give up because they think that there's so much to read in GK. Everything under the sun could be asked on GK. So it's better that we simply do not do it at all. However, this is a myth that we are trying to burst, that GK in NLSAT is not random. They do not just ask you anything and everything under the sun, but there are clear patterns that emerge when we look at the past year trends when it comes to GK. So GK is unpredictable and impossible to prepare for. This is the myth that we are trying to burst. This is not true. The reality is that certain themes have consistently appeared across multiple years. You need to look at PYQs very carefully. A lot of times we only analyze these PYQs for you to help you identify the recurring trends. And these are the trends that have been asked almost every year since the inception of this paper. And that is persons in news. Like this year they asked about the journalist who exposed Epstein, the criminal. Then there are questions on legal and political affairs like Shah Banu case, the collegium reforms, the dowry law reforms. Then there are questions on national affairs, particularly related to constitutional updates and governance. We have almost every year there are questions related to art, literature and awards. This includes your cultural awards as well. So this year we had a question on Kiran Desai, the Booker Prize winner. There was an Adivasi rapper who also received an award. So every year art, culture, literature and important awards are seen in the paper throughout. Then we have questions on international affairs almost every year. This year we were asked about the Vice President of Venezuela. Almost every year they ask something or the other about important international events that are happening across the globe. Then sometimes there are questions on sports as well, like Paris Olympics, sports governance. The other trend that emerges out is questions related to science and technology almost every year. So every year you will see questions related to science and tech. Sometimes it could be AI. Last year also there were questions on AI, the Ghibli trend, you know. This year also we had questions on AI translation tools, deep fakes, digital tools, etc. And then lastly we also have questions on economy and reports. If let's say there's an important report coming out either by World Bank, International Monetary Fund, or even in fact the NITI Aayog in India, it becomes a relevant source of news for you, like questions on digital investment, economic developments, etc. So basically this slide has told us that GK is not unpredictable, GK is not random. In fact, there are consistent themes that have occurred or have been seen in the paper throughout the last 3 to 4 years since the inception of this paper. So GK is not at all random, it is very much predictable and based on identified patterns and themes. Now let's talk about our myth number 6 that we are going to bust in this session, and that is more material is equal to better preparation. Everyone thinks that if you collect a lot of resources, if you enroll yourself in multiple institutes, you enroll or you take subscription of multiple newspapers, the Hindu, the Indian Express, Times of India, Hindustan Times, the Tribune, etc., you will be better prepared for this exam. However, this is simply a myth. Collecting more resources makes you better prepared is absolutely not the case. It only makes you feel that you are better prepared. आपको लगता रहेगा that because you have referred to so many resources, you are not missing out on anything. But do not fall in that trap of FOMO. You are not missing out on anything, because the reality is that feedback quality matters more than content quality. If you are relying on multiple sources without even thoroughly understanding and reading even one source, then it's absolutely a waste of time. Instead, do not focus on quantity of resources, but focus on quality of resources. Even if you enroll with NLTI or any other institute, just stay there, focus on the resources that you are getting with respect to the classes, with respect to mock tests or the hard copy study materials, and do not go after hoarding resources after resources. Because if you are, this is the more resources approach that we have seen a lot of people fall into over the last 3-4 years since we have been training students, and people who are of this category always end up making a lot of mistakes because they get overwhelmed, they get burnt out, and they crash just before the exam because there is so many things to do before the exam, and they end up doing nothing. More resources approach, you will collect 6 to 8 sources, you will read 4 editorials daily, you will end up focusing on quantity, but that is not what you have to do. A deep resources approach is what you have to follow. Instead of collecting 6 to 8 resources, rely on 3 sources, but rely on these sources very deeply. Instead of reading 4 editorials half-heartedly, a better way to do that is that you analyze one editorial thoroughly. But in fact, I'd say one editorial is a bit too less. You can rely on two, you can at least try to read 2 editorials per day that are given in the Hindu newspaper. Instead of focusing on quantity, focus on understanding whatever you are reading. A person who is of this category will just simply go on taking mocks and just checking their score. But that is absolutely waste of time. If you are giving a mock without analyzing it, it is as good as nothing. It is as good as not giving a mock. So instead of giving so many mocks that you can't even end up analyzing them in detail, give limited number of mocks, but analyze each and every mistake. Go through each and every answer, even if you got it right, even if you got it wrong, or you ended up taking a fluke in that question, or you got it right or wrong. So analyze each and every question that you are attempting in a mock or a sectional. You do not have to store model answer. Instead, you have to focus more on timed writing. You have to revise the notes that you have made in GK. If you have, let's say, made notes for the month for 8 months, it's not, you do not have to fall in the trap of revising GK for the same 8 months from another source, because that is absolutely irrelevant. You have made notes, rely on your notes, trust yourself, trust the process, and continue revising the notes that you have built yourself. Do not accumulate content. Instead, focus on building skills and focus on identifying and fixing your weaknesses instead of feeling productive. You feeling productive by virtue of collecting too many resources and relying on too many resources is not an ideal indicator of whether you'll end up cracking the exam or not. A better indicator of whether you will be cracking the exam or not is that whether you are identifying and then working on fixing your weaknesses and improving your strengths that you have identified by analyzing the mocks. So in this slide, we have busted one important myth, that more material is not equal to better preparation, because feedback quality matters instead of content quality, and collecting more resources will only make you feel better that you are not to satisfy your fear of missing out, that you have done absolutely everything in your power, but that is not helpful for your NLSAT preparation. Now, myth number 7 is that vocabulary prep is essential. A lot of people think that you need to study vocabulary extensively to score well in NLSAT. However, in recent times, what we have seen is that vocabulary questions have almost disappeared. Now there is almost no vocabulary question in the NLSAT examination. The exam has steadily shifted towards inference, reasoning, purpose, strengthening type question. If you check out my previous video on PYQ analysis, I have shown you based on the past year trends that vocabulary has almost shifted now. It has almost disappeared. In the first 2 editions of NLSAT, I think 23, 24, we could see some vocabulary questions, but in the last 2 years, it has almost disappeared and vocabulary is not particularly relevant. Let's see what is actually relevant. So what has increased? Inference questions have increased in the recent years. The primary purpose of the passage question type has increased in the recent years. Weakening an argument and strengthening an argument has also increased in the recent years. Initially, it was only 1 question that was seen in the paper. Now we easily see more than 5 to 6. And vocabulary, in the first edition of the paper, we saw 11 questions being asked in the paper, but we see now that there is almost no question asked in the paper. Also, I think my bad, NLSAT first edition was in 2022. So this edition was the 5th edition, and out of the 5 editions, we have mentored students for 4 of them. So NLSAT 22 saw vocabulary questions, almost 11 vocabulary questions in fact, but now we have seen a significant drop. Like there is no question now that is asked in the paper, but we have seen an increase in the vocabulary questions, in the inference question, and inference along with strengthening, weakening, purpose of the author and the passage. Then we see questions on main idea. Then we also see question on inferences. Myth number 8 is that conceptual clarity is enough. People think that if I understand the concepts, I will perform well on the exam day. But again, having conceptual clarity is not enough. Even if your foundations are strong, even if your concepts are strong, that is not an indicator of how well you will perform in the exam, because NLSAT is not an academic test. It is also a test of execution under pressure. I've been repeating this for the last 3 years to every NLSAT aspirant I have trained, that NLSAT is simply not about concepts. It is not about rote learning. It is not about how much syllabus you have covered, but it is about your execution of whatever you have learned in 1 year in those 2.5 hours when you are attempting the paper. Because the time pressure in NLSAT is particularly immense. It's not like any other exam, particularly if you have been a CLAT aspirant. NLSAT is very difficult when compared to CLAT, because firstly, CLAT does not have any writing component. People always end up underestimating how much time they need to write Part B answers. And that is why NLSAT, almost every NLSAT aspirant ends up miscalculating their time, and it becomes very difficult to manage their time in the actual paper. So just having conceptual clarity and hold over all the concepts is not enough. You need to execute those concepts in the paper. So that is why conceptual clarity is not enough. If you have conceptual clarity, you can identify question types during practice, but what you need is exam execution so that you can identify question types under exam pressure as well. A person with conceptual clarity can solve questions without a timer, but the same person might not be able to solve the questions in the exam, because during the exam you need to solve questions accurately under the exam conditions, which are way different as compared to the mocks that you are giving at home. You can perform well on untimed PYQs, previous year papers, if you have strong conceptual clarity, but NLSAT requires consistent performance across a 150-minute paper. Conditions vary, time varies, and your mindset varies. So you need to be an executioner rather than a person who has perfect hold over concepts. So here we talk about conceptual clarity is not enough. You need proper execution in the paper. Myth number 9, and very important, that you need legal knowledge for Part B. बहुत लोगों को लगता है that you require legal knowledge, so humanities students have an advantage. Because humanities students have either done, let's say, psychology, philosophy, sociology, anthropology. So they think that they have some connect with the law in general, and they will be able to perform better. But the reality is that Part B tests legal reasoning, not legal memory. It will test you on your common sense. it will test you on your application of legal principles to certain facts, and the same application can be done in a better fashion by a science student than a humanities student if you have that common sense, if you have that aptitude. Last year we had All India rank 5 Jay Shah, who was a doctor by profession, who was teaching as a doctor by profession, and still got an All India rank 5 in the NLSAT examination because of his legal aptitude, because of his common sense and his argumentation skills. So all you need is common sense and ability to apply principles to given facts, and not at all legal reasoning or not at all legal memory. You do not need to remember IPC sections, criminal sections, or the new criminal codes that have been released, BNS, BSA, BNSS. You do not need to remember anything. All you need is to apply the given principle to a particular situation. Let me tell you how a part B question works, because I've been speaking about part B this, part B that, but let me show you how a legal question looks like. So I will be moving out of the screen a bit in this slide so that you can see it properly. So in this, let's say you are given a principle in a question, and the principle is that a shopkeeper is liable if they knew about a hazard and failed to display a warning. This is related to one of the questions that was asked in the NLSAT 2026 examination. तो इसमें हमें प्रिंसिपल दिया है कि अगर एक शॉपकीपर को उसकी दुकान के हजार्ड के बारे में पता है, एंड इफ इट डज नॉट डिस्प्ले अ वार्निंग, ही विल बी हेल्ड लायबल. आप मेरे शॉप पे आते हो और अगर मेरे शॉप पे पानी गिरा हुआ है, एंड आई फेल टू डिस्प्ले दैट वाटर इज दैट द फ्लोर इज वेट और द वाटर इज स्पिल्ड, देन आई विल बी हेल्ड लायबल. इफ यू फेस एनी इंजरी, लेट्स से यू फॉल डाउन, then I will be held liable for your injury. This simple principle is given, and this is a very simple principle that was seen in the paper as well. Now, the facts that are given to us is that a customer slips on a wet floor, a warning sign was present. Here, let me add something else to the fact. A customer slips on a wet floor while he was using his phone. So I enter a shop where the floor was wet. I was constantly on my phone. There was a warning sign present on the floor, but I failed to look at it because I was on my phone. So now this is the fact to me, that floor was wet. The shopkeeper had placed a warning sign that the floor is wet. I entered the shop, but I failed to check the warning sign because I was on my phone, and as a result, I fell down and suffered injuries. So this is the fact that we are given with. Now, the issue that we have to identify is this. Is the shopkeeper liable despite the warning sign? Now, simple issue is, shopkeeper की liability तब होती है अगर warning sign ना हो. Either warning sign था. So the answer that we have to give in the paper is whether the shopkeeper can still be held liable despite the warning sign. Now we have to apply the principle. So in this situation, hazard existed, shopkeeper knew, warning sign was displayed, and now we have to reach a conclusion that liability is unlikely because the warning requirement was fulfilled. So the principle simply states that the shopkeeper's liability is only to an extent that a warning sign was placed. In this situation, shopkeeper ने warning sign place किया था, so his duty was fulfilled. His duty of care towards the customer has been fulfilled. So liability is unlikely. The shopkeeper will not be held liable. Simple, basic types of questions have been asked in the NLSAT paper similar to this. एक आपको passage दिया होगा, उसी में you will be given a principle that you have to infer, and in the same passage you will be given such facts, and in the end you will have to either argue from one side, or you have to decide as a judge whether the shopkeeper will be held liable. So this tells us that what you do not need is that you do not need to memorize any legal section, you do not need to remember any case laws, you do not require any prior legal knowledge, and you do not require knowledge of actual statutes. मैंने यहाँ पे कहीं पे criminal law use नहीं किया, मैंने यहाँ पे कहीं पे tort law use नहीं किया. The only thing I've done here is apply common sense, apply the principle given directly to the facts, and that is enough to get you a good score in the paper. Okay, so myth number 10, and very interesting. NLSAT is getting easier. लोगों को लगने लगा है, people have started thinking that NLSAT is getting easier. And one reason why people are thinking this is because cutoffs are increasing every year, and also because now we have 5-year PYQs available with us. जब पहले पेपर होता था, we did not have a standard, or we did not have something to rely on in terms of the resources, because there were no previous year papers available. But now, because 5 editions of this exam has already been conducted, we have now previous year papers to rely on, and root our preparation in. So people are thinking because of these two reasons cutoff बढ़ रही हैं and papers अब हमारे पास available हो गए हैं, NLSAT is getting easier. But this is simply a myth. The paper is becoming easier and more predictable is absolutely false. The reality is difficulty changes every year, but competition continues to increase. पेपर अगर इजी भी हो रहा है, कंपटीशन बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गया है. Last year, around 2,500 people appeared for this exam. This year, we have already filed an RTI and we are waiting for the result from the college. But we are expecting around 3,500 to 4,000 people have easily sat for this exam this year because of the number of competition and the number of total enrollments that we got at NLTI. We have an idea that a minimum of 3,500 to 4,000 people sat for the exam. So every year the competition is increasing significantly. अगर इस साल 4,000 बच्चों ने दिया है, अगले साल 6,000 बच्चे देने वाले हैं, तो competition हर एक साल में increase हो रहा है, and as a result of that, cutoffs are getting higher because the level of preparation for each candidate has increased so much. Now each candidate is putting in so much effort and time into this paper that they are scoring great. पिछले साल तक 97, 98 पर आपको कॉलेज मिल गया था. इस साल the same cutoff should have been decreased because the paper was difficult, but still the cutoff did not decrease. Cutoff इस साल भी 97, 98 रही है, despite the paper getting tougher, especially part A, simply because the level of preparation of candidates was very high this year as compared to last year. So the paper might come easy next year, but again the level of difficulty, level of competition has increased so much that it is only going to get tougher and tougher to crack this paper. NLSAT paper trends 2022 moderate tha, key challenge was vocabulary. In 23 moderate to hard increase in critical reasoning. NLSAT 24 was by far the hardest paper because it had a lot of CR questions. To make up for the hard level of difficulty, 2025 came easy, strong GK emphasis. So till 22 to 24, we saw around 22 questions of GK. But from last year, we have started seeing 28 questions in GK section. NLSAT 25 and NLSAT 26 both had 28 GK questions. Now 26 में again level of difficulty increased and the paper was moderate. Tricky GK and assigned portions in part B. आपको अभी तक 25 तक बोला जाता था कि आप किसी भी साइड के लिए आर्ग्यू कर लो पार्ट बी में, but in NLSAT 26 that specifically asked you to argue, take one side and argue for it. So what is actually changing? Reading passages are becoming denser and denser, LOD is going high. GK is becoming more and more contextual. अब आपको isolated static GK नहीं दिखने को मिलती है, it's very contextual. Part B is becoming more sophisticated and competition is becoming stronger and stronger each passing day. Next year we are expecting NLSAT competition to be the highest till date, and the cutoffs will be soaring high. Paper will be difficult probably, and simply that the level of competition has increased so much that you need to start early if you want to prepare for this exam properly. Even when a paper feels easier, rank becomes harder because more prepared candidates are competing. Yes, for sure. Okay, myth number 11, only the elite people get in. The myth is that only exceptional students from elite institutions crack NLSAT. However, the reality is that successful candidates come from a wide variety of institutions and academic backgrounds. What successful aspirants do is that they build reading discipline over months. They analyze 20 plus mocks thoroughly. They practice part B consistently. They follow a structured GK routine and they develop a smart test taking strategy. And the common misconception among candidates are that you can only crack NLSAT if you have some extraordinary intelligence and you need to study all day for NLSAT, need a law background, need perfect GK scores, or need to attempt every question. This is absolutely false. You do not need any of these things. You need not study every day. You need not study all day. You do not need a law background or humanities background. You do not need GK scores perfect, and you do not need extraordinary intelligence. All you need is a structured study routine. Along with these things, build a reading speed, build a reading ability, comprehension ability, be consistent with it, analyze at least 20 plus mocks, prepare for part B consistently and throughout the year. Do not start it very late. Follow a structured GK routine and develop smart test taking strategies. Do not just rely on sectionals and mock tests. Go attempt whatever you can on Google. Attempt free resources that are available everywhere, but you do not need anything extraordinary to clear this paper. Every common man can clear this paper with some effort and consistency. Now, how NLSAT is changing the last 5 years. The last 5 years show clear shifts in both the exam and aspirant pool. So earlier, 3 to 4 months were commonly seen among aspirants preparing for this exam, but now the current trend is that 6 to 10 months is the minimum time that students are taking to prepare for this exam. Earlier, there was a limited use of mock tests. People used to give 4 or 5 mocks and be prepared for this exam. But this year, last year, we have seen that mocks are central to preparation, and you need to solve at least 20 plus mocks to stand a chance to clear this paper. Earlier, Part B was often ignored and done last minute because there were not a lot of resources to prepare for Part B. But as coaching institutes evolve, as we get more and more PYQs available with us, Part B has started to become a major rank differentiator because people are prepared for it thoroughly. Earlier, people used to prepare for general current affairs because they used to think that GK can be anything and everything under the sun. But now we know the patterns, we know the trends that NLSAT is looking for. So we have started preparing current affairs in a context-driven manner, in a contextual manner. Earlier, paper used to be vocabulary focused for RC and CR, but now the paper has shifted towards inference and reasoning focused. We see questions from strengthening, weakening, primary purpose, main idea, inference, conclusion, premise, etc. Candidate pool, perceived humanities dominance. Earlier, we used to perceive that only humanities candidates can prepare for this paper and crack it, but now we see diverse academic backgrounds attempting and cracking this paper. Feedback was content focused, but now it's more quality focused and feedback focused. So these are the changing trends in this paper that we have seen. Now, a guide for CLAT aspirants turned NLSAT aspirants. So if you are someone who gave CLAT 3 years back and did not get into your dream law school, that is NLSIU Bangalore, and are now retargeting NLSAT, this slide is for you and you specifically. Many NLSAT aspirants are now coming from CLAT background, and this gives them some advantages but also creates specific challenges. Reading comprehension, you have a strong reading base already. You have prepared for CLAT in your time and you know what RC and CR is. But the NLSAT challenge is that the passages are denser. A lot of passages are from literature, fiction and classics that are absent in the CLAT paper. Legal awareness, you are familiar with the legal language, you know the big 4 concepts, but the NLSAT challenge is applying only the given principle. You cannot bring in outside knowledge. You have to stick to the principle given in the passage. Attempt strategy, you need to use to focus on speed-based approach because 120 questions or 150 questions in 120 minutes used to be tough. But here your main goal is accuracy-focused approach. You need to get all 75 questions right or at least target a good score of 65 to stand a chance in cracking this paper. There was no writing equivalent section in CLAT, so this is a major challenge because Part B accounts for 50% of the NLSAT paper. In GK, for CLAT, you used to do a broad preparation, but here we have to place emphasis a lot and more emphasis on context. You have to identify the patterns and do that only. CLAT preparation provides the foundation, but NLSAT preparation requires a different strategy. Yes, we all know that by now. So just to summarize myth versus reality, the changing trends that we talked about, this is all summarized in one. So myth is that humanities students have an advantage. Multiple academic, and the reality is that it is not true. They might have an advantage, but NLSAT has seen multiple academic backgrounds successfully clear paper in the last 3 years. 2 to 3 months were enough earlier, and now it is absolutely false. It is a myth. Longer preparation timelines are becoming common as the competition is increasing. The earlier used mocks were only for the end. This is a myth now. Again, mocks are not for the end. They have to be integrated throughout your preparation, and they are a core training tool for your preparation. Part B can be winged is a myth. You cannot wing Part B on the paper because it is often the rank determiner when it comes to NLSAT. GK is not random. GK is very context driven and strong patterns exist by which you can decode what you have to study for the paper. Actually, more material means better preparation. This is also a myth. More preparation, more resources do not mean that you have a better chance of cracking the exam because feedback matters more than quantity. It is your quality that determines how well you're going to perform in the paper. Vocabulary is essential. That is not true. Now vocabulary is not essential. Analytical reading matters more because vocabulary has almost distinguished from the paper. Concepts guarantee performance. This is another myth. If I am strong in concepts, I will end up clearing the paper. No, because NLSAT requires you to be an executioner. You have to execute all your concepts under pressure when you are sitting in the final paper. So just having hold over all critical reasoning concepts like assumption, conclusion is not enough. Law background is necessary. Of course, if you are giving NLSAT, you do not need to have a law background. You are coming from some other background and now are trying to pursue law. So what the NLSAT is testing is your logic and reasoning, not your application of law or your legal memory. The paper is getting easier. Absolutely false. The paper is not getting easier. If anything, getting in the paper, cracking the paper and getting into National Law School is getting difficult and difficult because the competition is becoming stronger. And lastly, only elite students succeed. Absolutely false. That is not the case. We have seen that consistency is the real differentiator rather than the college you come from. It doesn't matter which college have you pursued your UG from. So the biggest lesson from the data across topper interviews, preparation trends and paper analysis, one theme appears repeatedly, and that is that the students who succeeded were the ones who were consistent, most consistent and systematic with their preparation. You cannot just start 3 months before the exam and think that you will end up cracking the paper. That is not the case anymore. You have to spend at least 6-7 months with the paper. It is always better that you enroll in June when your semester exams are just over. We are also starting a new batch from the 15th of June. So it is high time that you start your NLSAT preparation. I'm not saying you enroll with us, you enroll with any other coaching, but you see the results that NLTI has produced over the past 3 years. This year as well, we have produced 4 out of top 5 ranks, AR 1, 2, 4 and 5. And those people were all those who started their preparation early and were consistent and systematic in their prep. So the common topper habits across everyone is that they did regular testing, they indulged in mock analysis, they did proper Part B practice, they were consistent with GK revision, and there was long-term preparation timeline. They did not just start towards the end. Okay, so the conclusion of this session is that NLSAT has not dramatically changed its standards. It still retains its original look. What has changed is the quality of preparation among aspirants. Students are starting earlier, giving more mocks and taking Part B more seriously. Students are actively seeking feedback instead of simply collecting resources, and the myths have changed. The competition has changed. The preparation landscape has changed. And the question is, will your preparation change with it? If yes, enroll with NLTI, start early, focus on quality of resources than quantity of resources, and you'll be good to go. So that's it from this session. Hope you found this useful. Hope you have something to take away from this. If you were any of the students who were still relying on the older knowledge, older myths, I hope we have busted all of them for you. You are all invited to give NLSAT, prepare for it with NLTI or with any other coaching, even if you want to do self-study, most welcome. But be consistent with your preparation and do not fall in under any of the traps that we just talked about. That's it from this video. If you liked it, please drop a comment in the comment box, because that incentivizes us to bring in more such videos in the future to help you in your NLSAT preparation, absolutely free of cost. That's it. I am Anish from NLTI taking your leave. Bye-bye. Goodbye.